Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And that brings us to a title which has been designated by Criterion at spine number 1190 on a Blu-ray edition release. And this is a work which is described as being from the year 1998, and the name of the filmmaker is Cauleen Smith. And the name of the work is DRYLONGSO. This is the work, the extraordinary work and brilliant work from the filmmaker Cauleen Smith, and this is a film which we have Salim Akil and Cauleen Smith credited as the writers, and we have Cauleen Smith as the editor and executive producer, and Cauleen Smith as the director. And we also have, in terms of the cast, people like Toby Smith and April Barnett and Will Power and others. And I'm speaking of this work, again described as being from the year 1998, DRYLONGSO. Wow. Wow, what a film this is, DRYLONGSO. And we have this film now being released on this great Blu-ray courtesy of the Criterion Collection here in 2023. So much to say about this intriguing work, this multi-layered, multi-textured work. And I think if we were to try to describe the plot or story structure of this film, I think we would be focusing in on our characters of Pika and Toby, and we meet them fairly early or almost immediately in the film, and we understand Pika, who is a young woman who is also studying and also has a family and is living in this community and has this intriguing and really fascinating viewpoint and perspective in terms of observation and viewing and viewership and art and photography and also music and the modern day living experience. And this is expressed also in her, say, pursuit and her outlook being expressed via her art, and specifically pictures, Polaroid photographs. There is also a very interesting undercurrent to her approach to the photographs, namely that she is photographing African American men, black men who she meets, who she encounters. She may know them. She may be walking and in the neighborhood and maybe meeting people along the way and just asking to take pictures of them or photographs of them or Polaroids of them. And the reasoning behind this approach, as she herself expresses it in the film, is related to notions of identity and self-identity, and also objectively perceived identity, made manifest in the actual image itself, the Polaroid picture, which I think also could be in many ways a type of metaphor or stand-in for the medium of film itself. And there's also much to be said about the fact that this film is made on film, and it is a film about a young woman, a young artist, interacting with a type of film. So there is I think, self-reflexive or meta quality to it about a film about the production or the approach or the creative process vis-a-vis art and the image. Here we also have that image intertwined or focused, I think, quite pointedly on the visage, the face, and the appearance and figures, and the daily lived-in experience of young black men as she is photographing them. And the other sort of plot point that is related to that is that there is there is this parallel plot point about killings and the deaths and killings and murders of people in the community, and also the deaths of young black men or black men in the community, which is again part of one of the plot threads that is running through that's currently running through the film. And this also introduces an element of killings and also serial killings that is, again, introduced almost immediately throughout when the film opens, vis-a-vis information that is transmitted through, say, news broadcasts and the like. So there is this undercurrent of death and murder and serial killings. And so the photograph, in terms of the plot or plot connectivity, seems to have a way of channeling to, at least from Pica's perspective, a way of channeling into this plot thread of the killings that are happening or the deaths that are happening. And this also is a type of point counterpoint from an artistic and visual medium perspective, from her point of view as an artist and also as a person living here, about a means by which she can, say, catalog or capture these men who are essentially, and event from how she's describing it and how the film is describing it, how men who are dying. And themselves becoming, quote unquote, a type of endangered species, and from the expressions of the filmmaker and the characters here. And so this type of using the film, the medium of film, as an element of, say, preservation, and also as an element of, say, protection, but also as a a a type of plot device that is also portentous or portentous, is, I think, quite an interesting conceit that is intertwining, I think, various plot threads of the film, thus reminding us of just how multi-layered this is. This is a film that could be said to be maybe even a serial killer thriller, because there's also turns of the film that allow for the plot to engage with that, the hunt for the killer, or who is the killer, and that the film gives a space to allow the characters to explore that plot. Let me put it that way. So while also connecting to that, the sense of trying to capture moments in time with the film, while also with the medium of film, a la the Polaroid camera, this idea of reflection and the perspective on individuals and also on society writ large, because there is maybe also a type of socio-political currency, an undercurrent to that, when we are reminded too of the time and place that this film is being made, 1990s America. And so, and we are also reminded when we, for example, look at, say, some of the behind-the-scenes footage or the interviews and the supplements that are accompanying this great disc. We're also reminded of the time and place that this is made, and also the race and race relations in America in the 1990s, and also race and race relations in American cinema in the 1990s. And so this is also part of that. But it is but one of many layers. And another of those layers of the film, I would suggest too, is the relationship between our main characters of Pica, whom we've been speaking about already, and another key character, who's Toby, and whose character that we also meet fairly early in the film. And Pica is portrayed by Toby Smith, and Toby is portrayed by Abel Barnett. And what we have is this interesting juxtaposition between these two young women who are, it could be said, meeting early in the film through the plot circumstances by a series of chance meetings, or a chance encounter, actually, that also hints at a type of, say, relationship background vis-a-vis the character of Toby. Very early on, and also their friendship, Pike and Toby's friendship, as the film progresses and blossoms, really allows for an exploration of their own, say, self-reflexive aspects of themselves and their identities. And I mention this in the context also of Toby, our other main character, because one of the fascinating things about it is how she goes about, say, exploring her own character, her own sense of identity, and also how her sense of identity is encountering or engaging with or reckoning with the world around her. And this introduces an element which is how she dresses, how she explores this aspect of herself, and we see how she is seen a lot of the times dressed in clothing, and then Cauleen Smith, in her discussion in the supplements, describes this as clothing which is exploring hip hop culture. During the late 1990s, which was a really big deal, and Cauleen Smith makes a point of this. And we see also how gender and gender positions, and also gender representations, and perceptions and conceptions about gender are being explored here, vis-a-vis Toby's own explorations, as we see the way in which Toby is um, walking through the community, wearing the clothing that Toby decides to wear, and also encountering Pika as well. And that becomes part of the conversation here, as well as being another platform upon which the relationship between Pika and Toby develops, and I think becomes a strong bond. And also that in turn is strengthened and tested when we are reminded of the other plot threads that we have been introduced to, namely the plot thread of the photograph and the picture, and how certain direct elements of the killer thread or the killer plot point affect them quite directly, leading to some real interesting plot situations that I think are combining a lot of these various, say, layers or textures that comprise or make up the entirety of this brilliant film, DRYLONGSO. So this is, I think, so leveled in many ways. It's structured so tightly, and it is a very much a type of slice of life feeling to it on the one hand, and it also has this great sense of compactness and style on the other hand that makes for some very compelling viewing indeed. Um, I I was coming to this film again for the first time, courtesy of this great release by Criterion, and I was again very much taken aback. I was struck so positively, and it was a real. There was a sense of a slice of life feeling, and there was also the sense of the characters that feel real and alive, which I really appreciated and really respected. And there's also the sense of the the experience of living, which was being celebrated, which I really enjoyed. There was a type of celebratory feeling, and a type of joie de vivre feeling about this, as well as having aspects of a real sense of self-exploration. I really appreciate this idea, the film giving the room to the characters to be able to allow them to explore themselves and who they are as people, which I thought was really great. And I bring to your attention the stories and journeys of our characters that we meet, Pika and Toby respectively. This is a real great journey, and those journeys sometimes involve them together, and sometimes involves them separately and individually on their own. And the results that occur become part of the plot steps along the way. And you combine with that ideas and applications on music. I mentioned the exploration of hip hop and hip hop culture, and also the exploration of a sense of capturing um, femininity, or concepts or notions or representations of femininity, gender explorations, masculinity, and black masculinity as well, when we speak about the photographs. And this is also a point that's brought up by Cauleen Smith in a really great interview, which we'll talk about momentarily. These and other points are then further compounded or further, say, enhanced by the news footage elements, the killer elements, the hunt for the killer element, which I think gives the film a whole. This gives the film yet more levels of, say, plot and surprise and propulsion forward, as well as the readings, which I think are also possible, namely the socio-political, cultural, and sociological aspects of this, and the exploration of a type of time and place contextually. Those and other readings, I think, or those or other levels, I think, are combined here to make a real fantastic film that is DRYLONGSO. And as I say, upon watching this for the first time with this Criterion disc, I was really taken aback by it, and it was thrilling. It was also very tender, and it was also a very there were aspects that there were the details, little details, like, and I don't want to get into too many specifics here. Again, I want to preserve as much surprise as possible, but there's details, something like cards, tarot cards, and photographs, and this idea of the tangibility of them, and then how you can feel them. Which I think is a real lovely thing. And there's a lovely way in which this connects with the notion of capturing something of a moment or feeling or identity via film itself, and doing it in a way that has this lovely sense of pastiche and this combining various elements that are also acknowledged to be everyday things, everyday objects, things that are real and that have a kind of understandability or accessibility because they are current and they are of the moment, but they are also things that are everyday and lived in, part of the daily experience of human life, so to speak. And I love those moments too, things like riding the bike, or walking by the waters, or a Polaroid photo, or maybe a frame, or maybe a shelf on which something is laid, or the way that headphones are hooked into a stereo when you're listening to music, when the headphones are then unhooked in a certain scene. Relationships between parents and children, generations, relationships between in the world of academia and studies, and what it means to study and try to finish an assignment for class, and what it means to try to do that in your own terms, individually. And I'm speaking of Paika's journey here, part of that. These are part of the everyday lived-in moments, which I really, really love. DRYLONGSO is a really interesting title as well, and it's brought up in the essay. It's also brought up by Cauleen Smith in her interview, and I think this idea of capturing a sense of the ordinary, quote unquote, the ordinariness, the beauty in that. I think there's a lot to be said for that. There's also this way in which, in that way, it has this kind of a neorealist tint to it. Not just tint, I think a real aspect to it that I think works very well. The sense of the quote-unquote ordinary and the beauty in the ordinary. Thus, DRYLONGSO as the title. Really beautiful encapsulation of that. Plus being the other layers that I spoke about as well. This is a very, very remarkable achievement indeed. And I've seen it now a number of times thanks to this Criterion release, and I love it. I've loved it every single time I've watched it, and I love it even more. There's a compactness, there's a great sense of pacing and style, and there's also the way in which it moves forward and also takes its time. I love that. I really, really love that. This is a work of art, and really entertaining and really fun, and it's wonderful to get to know these people in this lovely rendered world, Toby and Paika. What wonderful people you get to meet when you watch this film, which is the film DRYLONGSO. The Criterion Collection has released this film, DRYLONGSO, on the single disc Blu-ray release at spine number 1190. And this is purported to be based on a new 4K digital restoration approved by director Cauleen Smith with uncompressed monaural soundtrack. And so that is the case for the the case for the Blu-ray right here. And I have the Blu-ray in the player at the moment, and I have taken the liberty of removing from the case the insert, which is a poster, fold-out poster type insert. There we go. There we go. And on the back, we have some writings and some information about the cast and crew, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in this video. But one of the things I want to do is on the bottom left-hand corner, there is information about the master, and I quote, DRYLONGSO is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.33 to 1. Approved by director Cauleen Smith, this new digital master was created from the 16mm original camera negative, which was scanned in 4K resolution on a laser graphics director film scanner. The original monaural soundtrack was remastered from the 35mm magnetic track by John Polito at Audio Mechanics in Burbank, California, etc. So, as I mentioned before, I'm coming to this work for the first time, courtesy of this Criterion release. So I unfortunately don't have a strong frame of reference to be able to compare how this Criterion release may stand up in relation to, say, previous releases of this film. So unfortunately, I'm not able to make comment in that department. However, I'm very confident in saying that this was this there's something about how film that's shot here, and the look and feel of it has this textured grain, which I think is so well captured. And also the color palette of the film. There are lovely, rich colors that are here. The some shots that involve a lot of brightness of colors, which I love. There's as I mentioned, a way in which this has a lovely collage effect to it. Pieces of things that are combined together to form a sense of, in some aspects, a sense of the patchwork quality of the art that is, I think, part of this. And you see it, I think, in a lot of the say the visual motifs that are employed, even all the way in the opening credits. There's this way which this type of panel-like quality gives way to this visual motif of the patchwork, which I think is also very much in keeping with the way in which, say, art and art exhibitions are explored here. Photos that are pasted or that are posted or that are displayed in this, I think, lovely and lattice sort of way, lattice work sort of way, which I bring that up because that type of visual motif is preserved so well when I'm watching this, again, courtesy of this presentation that's captured by the Criterion Collection here, the basis for the Criterion Collection release. So I was never distracted. I was always taken with the film. I was always enthralled and enveloped in the work, and had a lovely sheen to it, a lovely shine to it, and while also having this sense of grain, film grain, which I really appreciate. So you are reminded, I think, very pleasantly of the low budget quality of this, and there's a real beauty, a real type of grace and beauty to that as well. And also remembering where this film and how this film was made, which will talk about a little bit more with Cauleen Smith's interview, the filmmaker Cauleen Smith's interview. I think those elements being preserved in the presentation, I think, make this such a standout. So I was very happy with that in terms of the look and also the sound too. I mentioned there is a really strong music palette as well, and this is also one of the exploration points of the film, the music scene of the 1990s, and that is very much in the local music scene of the 1990s. And she mentions it, Cauleen Smith mentions it as well, this idea of exploration of hip-hop or South Bay hip-hop, and that's true in terms of how we see people interacting with the other characters, but also in terms of how music is employed. So this is also an element that's really quite enhanced when watching and listening to this on this Criterion disc. So I enjoyed this very much. And now let's turn to the supplements, which can be found together with the film. Again, we have a Blu-ray disc here, and I have the disc in the machine. And when we go to the supplements menu, we can see a number of things. First up, we have a Cauleen Smith and Michael B. Gillespie, and this is a discussion between the two of them. And Michael B. Gillespie is talking with Cauleen Smith about the work DRYLONGSO. Let me click here to give you the description. The following conversation, produced by the Criterion Collection in 2023, features DRYLONGSO director Cauleen Smith and film scholar Michael B. Gillespie. This is great. This is really great. It is approximately 24 minutes. We are introduced to Cauleen Smith. At least those who are watching this and watching this for the first time, or maybe meeting Cauleen Smith for the first time. And this is a great discussion where Cauleen Smith speaks about, for example, connections within the film, the inspiration for the film, and Cauleen Smith's own background, and getting engaged with things like news footage and news coverage in real life, and how that informed the plot device of the news and the killings in the film, which is again the way in which he's then able to connect the notion of the Polaroid camera and the Polaroid stills, which adds to the aspect of art and artistry and representation, visual representation, which is again also very much a self-reflexive point, a type of film within a film type of treatment, which I really appreciate, and it's also spoken about here. Really great. And also a number of filmmakers too that Cauleen Smith cites as, say, inspirations. People like Federico Fellini, and also Julie Dash and others are mentioned. And she also mentions too the context in which this film DRYLONGSO emerged, in the context of contemporary American cinema at the time, and what is referred to often as LA Rebellion films, and that LA Rebellion cinema. And so there is also this way in which this film figures in as as an example of this type of cinema, or contemporary, and a reading of this film in sociological terms as well, or political terms as well, which I think is an interesting reading. But I think Cauleen Smith and Michael Gillespie, towards the end of this discussion, also speak to the fact that there are other ways to read this, as an example, or as a form, or a representation of what they describe as black film, or black film as art, as they express it, which I think is a really fascinating discussion, and it really shows the great malleability of a number of readings all at once of a work like DRYLONGSO, and brilliantly so. And among those great discussion points, we have the use of voice, and the use of character dialogue as it's overlaid in some points, and also, as I mentioned too, the score, the music. This is also very important. And from Cauleen Smith's perspective, the exploration of the Bay Area hip hop culture, which is really big, and really has this connection to individual expression, which is also part of Pika's story and Toby's story as well. And this speaking of Toby, there is a discussion here which is talking about Toby's experience, and the concept of say, or the way in which Toby's experience is expressed in the film, vis-a-vis the clothing, and the clothing expressions, and how this could be linked to discussions about gender and gender representation, and aspects of identity and identification via gender representations. And Cauleen Smith also mentions this how this could also be aspects of Toby's sexuality, but also there are aspects of this which are an effort by Toby, and thus by the filmmaker, via Toby's expression in this film, to try to explore hip hop culture. After all, as Cauleen Smith explains, the way in which Toby is dressing are aspects of hip hop culture. You know, the fashion sense of the times, and this is thus how then Toby is taking these aspects and bringing them into say, Toby's interaction with the outside world as we see sometimes in the film, and reactions by other people, including Paika herself as well, which is interesting. But so this idea too of hip hop culture, and also how hip hop culture is itself growing and evolving and developing within itself, but also how it's being explored, a la quote unquote the outside world, end quote, which I think is a fascinating dynamic, and it's done through the journey of Toby, which itself is a great journey. So that's showing how there are so many possible ways of reading the story of a character as a type of multiple stand-in experience. It's really great, and also the currency of the film and as it was released. Um, the Million Man March is referred to in terms of the timing of this film and the parallel, say, contemporary historical events of the era. And there's a great phrase here about defying the spectatorial expectation of the moment, which I think is so profound. It also links into a discussion here towards the end here, which I was referring earlier to, about the concept or notion or the reading of black film as art, in the words of Michael Gillespie and Cauleen Smith here, and a type of way in which looking at DRYLONGSO or films of this vein, not just as sociological works, not just as type of socio-political works. These are also works of art, and I think that is a very, very great statement to make. And there's this idea of expression and feeling and art itself, which is on display with great, I think, fortitude and great confidence and a great deal of heart. I think that's another thing too that this interview reminds me. There are many things that are so great about this film, DRYLONGSO, but one of the things I think it makes it such a standout is that it is a film that has so much heart. The earnestness is just it's beautiful, it's poetic, and that earnestness I think is expressed so well, distilled so well, so poetically via the journeys of our characters, Toby and Paika. And then we are allowed then to take elements and details of the community via their journeys and then make that experience even more of a type of wholly lived in experience. I mean, that is, I think, one of the great keys of this. And listening to Michael Gillespie and Cauleen Smith's discussion here, I think really reminded me of that. It's what a great experience this is, and what a great discussion this is between Cauleen Smith and Michael B. Gillespie. This is the 24-minute discussion that is included here. It's a great, great discussion. But that's not all, because then we have selection of short films. This is, I think, referred to a little bit as well in the discussion, because Cauleen Smith talks about her career and filmography and work leading up to DRYLONGSO. And part of that is the short films, and there is a selection of short films here together with an introduction. The introduction is approximately 12 minutes. This is Cauleen Smith talking about each of the films in a sort of certain order, and then you watch the films that Cauleen Smith was talking about. So the first is Chronicles of a Lion Spirit by Khalil Gibran, and then Songs for Earth and Folk, and Lessons in Semaphore, and Egungun, Ancestor Can't Find Me, Remote Viewing, and Suffolk. And so I saw each of these films again a number of times. The first film, Chronicles of a Lying Spirit by Khalil Gibran, is approximately 6 minutes, and then Songs for Earth and Folk is approximately 10 minutes. Lessons in Semaphore is approximately 4 minutes. Egungun, Ancestors Can't Find Me. This is a work you can watch in a sort of 5-minute once through, or you can do this in a loop, which I really like. When you press it here, it says, here we go. Cauleen Smith's Egungun, Ancestors Can't Find Me, made in 2017 using 16mm film. A masked warrior-like figure shrouded in shells, feathers, and coral wanders across a lush landscape. So you can play it once through, or you can play it as a loop. And when you play it as a loop, it's approximately 53 minutes. Now, I watched it both times, and wow, it's great watching it once through, but I prefer the loop version. It's really great. And then remote viewing is 15 minutes, and Suffolk is 7 minutes. And so let me just see here. When you press, there we go. The first film, Chronicles of a Lion Spirit by Kelly Gibran, is described as, in this short, shot in 16 millimeter film in 1992, Cauleen Smith employs her alter ego, Kelly Gibran, and a collage of images, text, and voices in order to fabricate a history in which the presence of black women is reinserted into histories that often render themselves invisible. This is really cool. This film is really cool because it's using the idea of repetition. And the idea of repetition, things that we see once and then we see them again. And it's doing it a way to call attention to the fact that what we are seeing could be real, or it could be a complete construction, or it could be a hybrid of the two. And that sensibility combined with the real tour de force video collage artistic aspect is this is an amazing work. As I mentioned, a tour de force. This is great. So that's the first film there. The next film is Songs for Earth and Folk. It's described as, made in 2013, this short film by Cauleen Smith is composed entirely of 16mm and Super 8 found footage and is structured like a blues song with a live improvised electro-organic soundtrack created by Chicago-based band The Eternals. This is also a great, as I mentioned, this way in which it fuses these various film forms, types, and it creates this sense of a type of musical exploration. This is also great, and also it's a reminder too of DRYLONGSO. In many ways is this type of combination of many forms in what could be said to be a type of musical exploration. So this is also brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Lessons in Semaphore. In this 16 millimeter silent film by Cauleen Smith, shot on the south side of Chicago in 2016, choreographer Taisha Paget dances with two flags in an attempt to communicate in the semaphore. She meets a young boy, Malik, who appears to speak her language. So this is also really great because it's using the idea of the flags and the flags as communication, and also encounters, seemingly chance encounters. So it's using this detail about communication and also encompassing it in the notion of the everyday or the day-to-day, the daily living aspect, which I think is really great in terms of the use of environment. So that's lesson 7-4. Egungun Ancestors Can't Find Me, I mentioned that earlier, from 2017. You can play it once or you can play it as a loop. This is also great. Remote viewing. Wow, this was amazing. They're all amazing. This was too. Connecting sites and incidents to create a concrete and recuperative land art. Cauleen Smith's remote viewing, made in 2011 on digital video, is a reenactment of a deeply impactful event as remembered by a man looking back on his childhood. So you have this idea of space and time and an actual structure, a building structure, and it's fixated upon via the camera. And we're seeing something that, again, we are invited to think could be real, or it could be a construction, as well as being a reflection of some kind of historical past. Wow, the brilliance is in its simplicity, and but the brilliance in its simplicity also gives way to a rich complexity upon the film as you watch it to its end. This is so great. It's very clever. So remote viewing. And then Suffolk. This music video was commissioned in 2021 by musician Jeff Parker for his solo guitar composition Suffolk. The video complements director Cauleen Smith's short film Sojourner from 2018, which was partially shot by Noah Purfoy's Outdoor Museum in Joshua Tree, California, and features footage for that film. Excuse me. So Suffolk is approximately 7 minutes, and this is also a really fascinating visual exploration of environments and terrains, and also set to this musical piece as a type of musical video exploration. But the way that the sort of grounds and the earth and aspects of the environment are captured and rendered breathtaking. Simply put, breathtaking. So Suffolk. This collection of short films, this selection of short films by Cauleen Smith, is another eye-opener. This is another great survey into the work of Cauleen Smith. I mean, this release, DRYLONGSO, is many things, but one of the things it could be said to be is an introduction into the world of the art of Cauleen Smith. And if that's the case, if that's one of its goals, I think it has achieved that goal so well. You watch a film like DRYLONGSO and you watch the short selection or selection of short films, you are really experiencing the art of a great artist. This is Cauleen Smith. This is fantastic. This selection of short films is fantastic. They are real great compliments to a viewing of DRYLONGSO, as well as standing on their own so confidently, so strongly. Bravo, bravo indeed. And this is my first time to be engaged with Cauleen Smith's work. I am a fan. I am a big, big fan. And I'm just getting started because this is, again, an introduction into the world of Cauleen Smith's art. What an introduction this is for me. I'm so honored to be able to do that. This is so great. So this is the selection of short films. I I strongly, strongly recommend watching them. So, and then we have the supplements rounded out or ending with a trailer, which is also very great. So that's the third of the three supplements, the trailer. So this is, I think, a great introduction into the world of the art of Cauleen Smith, and it certainly was for me because, as I say, I'm approaching this for the first time as a first-time viewer. But this disc and the supplements really helped to guide me through this journey. And I must say that the discussion between Cauleen Smith and Michael B. Gillespie, eye-opening, and the short films, mind-blowing, as well as the film itself, DRYLONGSO, also itself utterly, utterly mind-blowing and utterly filled with a sense of feeling and meaning that is so profound. The supplements that are found with DRYLONGSO. So now let's conclude with other aspects of this great release. So DRYLONGSO is a single Blu-ray disc. It comes with this wonderful art rendering in this plastic case, and also that art is reflected too in the insert, the poster fold-out insert, which is right here. I've showed it before, but let me show it again. The poster, which is also a representation, recreation of the artwork, the cover art, and then also the writings on the back with the Polaroid photo motif on display very nicely. Just first off about the artwork, this is production credits here. Art directors Eric Skillman, Sarah Habibi, illustration Krista Franklin, designer Eric Skillman, art production coordinator William Briz, art assistant Julie Sussman. Really like this. Again, the collage effect, which I think is also very much in keeping with the, say, artistic philosophical approach that one might say is inherent in this film DRYLONGSO, and indeed one might say is one way of describing the great approach of Cauleen Smith. So I love this. It's really great. And also the Polaroid photo aspect is really, really key as we've discussed it. It's great. The fold-out poster, again, it's a great celebration of what the artwork is. I'm not a fan of the actual type, the fold-out poster type. I'm not a fan of it. I wish it could have been the staple booklet, because the staple booklet allows for more robust, a lot of pages, a lot of potential writings, etc. So I wish it could have been not the poster fold-out, but that's okay, because what we're still getting is the essay, which is A Refuge of Their Own by Yasmina Price. And it is a stellar essay. I've read it a number of times through now, and well, please watch the film first, because I think the essay is written with the assumption that the reader has watched the film DRYLONGSO. But after you've seen the film DRYLONGSO, read this essay. It is phenomenal. It goes through various points of the various readings. As I mentioned, DRYLONGSO is a multi-layered film, I would say, and so each of those layers and more perhaps are, I think, revealed and discussed and touched upon in this great essay. So it's so great. Please check it out if you can. But my dear friends, that concludes my discussions on DRYLONGSO. I am feeling so happy that this film is being made available in this way, and yeah, this is a great one. A lovely way for me to enter into the world of the Cauleen Smith cinema journey. and a number of these points along the way that were shared as part of this Criterion Collection release really were wonderful and eye-opening and beautiful. And I'm also speaking to this great work, DRYLONGSO. What a beautiful work this is. I'm so moved and touched by this. Thank you. This has been a great experience, and I hope to be able to revisit this many, many times to come. This is the work which is DRYLONGSO. All right, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please watch DRYLONGSO. It's really great. And the short films, they're really, really great. I'm sorry. And so please, my dear friends, please continue to be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies, including DRYLONGSO, including the works by Cauleen Smith, including other films, other films to be found in the Criterion Collection and beyond. And so until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.